Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro Adventures. At the end of another week, and the end of another poll, we've got a very slight win for The Keep on the Borderlands from 1979. Now we'll have a look at that on the tabletop in a wee second. But I'd just like to bring your attention to our Patreons, who have all maxed out their charisma. You have never seen a more attractive or beautiful bunch in the world. If you'd like to join them, then we've got a Patreon in the description down below, where you can get access to these videos a week early, where you can get access and become a real honest-to-goodness fake Laird of Scotland, and some other offers we've got, and you'd be helping the channel out a lot. So if you'd like to do that, then check out the link and come and join us. Anyway, let's have a look at The Keep on the Borderlands. So, this is The Keep on the Borderlands. Now it's Dungeon Module B2, the B standing for Basic, because this is the second adventure for Dungeons & Dragons Basic set. It also mentions that it's an introductory module for character levels 1 to 3, a special instructional module. Now it originally came out in 1979 from TSR, although this version's copyrighted 1980-1981, because I got it in my 1981 Magenta Basic set, the Magenta box. Now the adventure itself, if we look at the back cover, there's a nice picture of the keep there, nice pastel shades of it, and a group of adventurers heading to it. I think it's quite evocative. But the back cover basically just explains the other things available. Other playing aids currently available for use with the Dungeons & Dragons game system include Dungeon Module B1, In Search of the Unknown, B2, Keep on the Borderlands, X1, The Isle of Dread, and various other things. Now I've covered some of those adventures on the channel before, but the actual description of it is here beneath. This module includes a cover folder with maps and a complete description booklet to form a ready-made scenario for Dungeons & Dragons Basic set. It's been specially designed for use by beginning Dungeon Masters so they may begin play with a minimum of preparations. Within are many features to aid novice players and Dungeon Masters, legends, history and background information, a list of adventuring characters, tips on how to be an effective Dungeon Master, plus an interesting area for characters to base themselves in the Keep, before setting out to explore the Caves of Chaos. Now, like many of those starting adventures, especially ones I've covered, this is an introduction to games mastering. So, while In Search of the Unknown was teaching you about delving into dungeons, a very basic start to D&D, The Isle of Dread is teaching you about hex crawl adventures, where you are exploring the terrain around. This is a very basic introduction to campaigning. While it's not a campaign setting, it is a place where the players go, so they end up at the Keep on the Borderlands. And that's where they base themselves out of. They will return to those between adventures, they'll have encounters at the Keep, but they'll go out on various missions exploring the area around. And there's a large dungeon there, the Caves of Chaos, which they can build themselves up to and take multiple attempts at going back to the Keep to heal. And there's lots of stuff going on, but it's building up a cast of NPCs around the players and that kind of thing. A very early introduction to campaigning. Now, I commented that I like the image on the back. I like it far more than the image on the front cover, which seems very cartoony. A lot of the art on the early Dungeons & Dragons modules wasn't great. Although I have to admit, I do kind of like the dwarf in his kilt there. It's obviously a sunny day if he's Scottish because he's got his tap off. Inside, well, the inside cover of the, it's mapping out a dungeon and various features, the Caves of Chaos. We've got this small booklet which has various reference things, so it's like a very simple Games Master screen. Armor classes, magic user and elf spells. We've got a map of the area with the Keep, the Cave of the Unknown, the Caves of Chaos, and various other locations which are noted in the adventure, dotted around. And on the back of that, we've got a map of the Keep itself. And then we've got the adventure booklet. Well, as I said, this is an adventure where the players are going to the Keep. But one of the things I really like about this, although many early Dungeons & Dragons adventures can just be looked at as dungeon bashes without much role-playing, we've got an introduction here, notes for the Dungeon Master, using combat tables, lots of introductory stuff. How to be an effective Dungeon Master, how to manage time, dividing treasure and computing experience, preparation for the use of the module. We've got some background information on what the keep is. It's very much on the edge of human civilization. It's a fortress on the Borderlands, way out by itself in a dangerous area. But it makes the point here that you have travelled for days, leaving the realm and entering into the wilder area of the Borderlands. Farms and towns have become less frequent and travellers few. The road has climbed higher as you entered forested and mountainous country. You reach the keep. All along the wall you see curious faces peering down at you, eager to welcome new champions of law, but ready with crossbow and polearm to give another sort of welcome to enemies. Have each player identify his or her character name and profession. Have them answer in their own words why they seek entrance to the place. If the answer sounds unnatural, assume the role of the corporal of the watch and begin to cross-examine the speaker. So the very first thing you're doing is role-playing. You are introducing your character to the group, to the dungeon master, explaining why you've come to the keep on the Borderlands. And if it doesn't come natural to you, then the dungeon master is probing you with further questions. It's a fantastic piece of character development. Perhaps the best I've seen in an early adventure, because people will write interesting backgrounds, but this gets them to draw it out, and people who haven't done the work, who make things up, will get questioned on it and have to make up a more complex background, more interesting tales about their story, about their character's story. So we've got notes about the keep here. We've got rumours as usual. Some of them are false. Others are true. There's the Inner Bailey, which the players gain access to later on once they've performed some actions for the keep. And then we're detailing out the various areas of it. And these are places where you can go. So there's a jewel merchant. So as you're getting treasure, you'll be returning to them and trading it in for gold to get it appraised and all that. There's a priest, there's a smithy and armourer. So as you require arrows, as you want to upgrade your weapons, as you've got money, there's a smithy there, provisioner, trader. There's a loan bank and watchtowers, traveller inn, the tavern with its prices, guild house, there's a chapel, the inner gatehouse with the captain of the guard and his guardsmen. And it goes through all these areas, detailing out what you gain access to as you go on. There's the Castellan, the guy who runs the castle. He's a 6th level fighter and he's got various magical items. So he's the big tough guy around. But part of this adventure, because it can be quite tough going into the Caverns of Chaos themselves. In fact, there's one room which has about 20 monsters in it, all crammed in. I think it's 10 skeletons, 10 zombies, if I remember off the top of my head. So it can be a tough fight for first to third level characters. But the idea would be, if you've done some of the earlier adventures, you'll have hirelings and followers already. So you'll be able to take in extra forces, and it won't be just your party of a group of 6 or 7 adventurers. It's going to be your party plus all their hirelings. So it's going to be a much more equal fight. Anyway, we've got the area around. So as I mentioned, the map has various sections marked on it. At one there's the Mound of the Lizardmen, there's Spider's Lairs, there's a Raider Camp, there's the Mad Hermit. And then we've got the Caves of Chaos and all the encounters within that. Obviously I won't go through room by room, but we've got some kobolds in there, we've got some orcs, the Orc Chieftain, we've got goblin lairs, ogres, all the sort of things you would expect from a very early adventure. Lots of monsters packed into a dungeon altogether. An owlbear's den, bugbear's room, just throwing all the monsters out of the game straight in. Caves of the Minotaur itself, a huge monster. The Shrine of Evil Chaos, the Old Chieftain, the Horde of the Skeletons. Chapel of Evil Chaos, Adept's Chamber, Temple of Evil Chaos, torture chambers, storage chambers, various prison cells. And then we've got the credits here. It was designed and written by Gary Gygax himself, and then it's been revised by Dave Cook, Harold Johnston, John Pickens, Michael Price, Evan Robinson, Laurit Schick, and Stephen D. Sullivan. Many of those names which are very recognisable. And then we've got a section on non-player characters, because of course, as you're visiting the keep, the Game Master is going to be using various characters. So we've got human stats, we've got demi-human stats, we've got instructions on how to design your own dungeon floor plans. We've got tips for players, a glossary explaining various things. We've got the guild house floor plan, so an element within the keep, and a piece of paper to design your own floor plans, and space to create your own non-player characters. Now, as adventurers go, it's fairly simple. You're just exploring the dungeon. It's giving you plenty of opportunities to explore and then head back home. So you're returning again and again to complete the access to the Caves of Chaos, to clear them out. And you've got all the role-playing elements of having a home base and NPCs. It's a very nice introduction to role-playing. I don't think it's of massive use to players these days, but for somebody wanting to go into a retro adventure, I think it still stands up, and it's quite fun. So that was the Keep of the Borderlands, and that won the poll this week with 30% of the vote, which is kind of major because this was one of the more successful polls we've had lately, with 142 votes. But behind it by only 1 percentage point, and I think it was just a single vote, was the Masanalahdeb for Call of Cthulhu on 29%. Behind that was Other Space for Star Wars on 20%. Queen Euphoria for Shadowrun on 14%, which surprised me because Shadowrun adventures are usually pretty popular in these polls, so it was really weird to see it coming in second last. And in last place was City of Angels for Twilight 2000, with only 7%, which saddens me a bit because I really enjoyed covering a Twilight 2000 adventure a few weeks ago. Perhaps it's just City of Angels you don't like, so in future polls I'll try different Twilight 2000 adventures, because there were quite a lot and there's a lot of fun ones out there, especially with the particular tone that Twilight 2000 has. Anyway, they're all cleared out of the poll and we're going back to a retro RPG. And sometimes when I'm making up these polls, I'm just trying to catch my imagination, decide what I want to do. And after the first couple turned out to be 1997 releases, I decided to go with that as the theme. So all 5 options are from 1997 this time. So first of all, we've got GURPS Ultra Tech from Steve Jackson Games. We've got the Riggers Black Book 2, or I think it's just called Riggers 2, for Shadowrun. We've covered the Riggers book before, and this came out for 2nd edition, goes over some of the same ground, but enhances the amount of vehicles in Shadowrun. Like GURPS Ultratech 2 enhances the range of options from GURPS Ultratech. Next up we've got Arcane Mysteries of Barsave for Earthdawn, also by Fazza. We've got Kraken's Threat Dossier for Star Wars. And the Silver Fangs Tribe Book for Werewolf the Apocalypse from White Wolf Publishing. So we will see which one of those do well. I think I know which way it's going to go, because, as I mentioned before, there's a particular game which tends to be very, very popular in these polls. But we shall see, because I have been wrong in the past and I will be wrong in the future, as I am often wrong. On other channel-related stuff, well, we've not much going on. The Discord's chugging along, there's a few comments in there, but it's pretty quiet. The Patreon, I've rolled out some new options to go with the series that's been running the last few weeks, the Retro Magazines, where we're discussing various articles from those magazines ahead of time. I'm scanning them in and sharing them with Patreons, and I'll continue doing that because while this week I'm going to go back to a house rules video, and cover the assembly of the game that we're creating together. Next week I think I'll go back to our Retro Magazines, and after that I think I'll probably continue my Satanic Panic series and alternate between the Retro Magazines instead of the block of ones that I just did. Apart from that, there's not much going on the channel. We're chugging along quite nicely here. I'm enjoying reading all your comments, and people are sharing some wonderful stuff about old games, which I'm enjoying reading a lot. Anyway, as usual, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very, very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.